Today we're going to take a look at some tips for TIG welding stainless steel. Some of the things that make a big difference and that keep stainless are travel speed, gas shielding, argon back purging, using chill bars, and using stainless steel wire brushes that have only been used on stainless steel. Let's get into it. One thing that's often overlooked is travel speed, and not just travel speed, but how quickly you can get going to outrun the heat. We're going to take a look at a 11 gauge stainless outside corner joint here real quick. You can tell the travel speed, kind of, because we're adding filler metal about once per second and moving the torch ahead about 1/8 of an inch in between dabs. It's important to get going really quickly. Establish your puddle within 2 seconds and get moving. Stainless is not very thermally conductive. Heat builds up, so travel speed is a very important factor. Here are the settings used for this particular joint in case you want to pause this. We'll move on to gas shielding and cup size. Standard collet bodies that come with TIG torches or come with a machine, there's nothing wrong with them. They're a good way to get started, but you're limited on how far you can stick the electrode out without starting to lose gas shielding. And here's a good example of that. I've got it extended 7/16 of an inch, and it's just squirrely. That puddle is oxidized and it's not flowing freely. So I'm going to switch over to a number 8 stubby gas lens cup. Everything else remains the same. The 20 CFH, heat, everything, and all of a sudden things got tremendously better. Now if I switch over to a 10 with some secondary diffusers in there, things are going to get even better. So stainless steel loves argon shielding. And it's for that reason that I pretty much hardly ever use a standard collet body for TIG welding stainless steel. Next up, we're going to take a look at TIG welding some stainless steel coped tubing. Being able to use a rather long stick out and still maintain really good gas shielding is very helpful for not only stainless steel joints like this, but especially for chromoly cluster joints on things like motorsports, chassis, and aircraft fuselages. Now notice I don't have any kind of back purge going on this tubing. That's because it's 1/8 inch wall, and I'm pretty confident that I'm not going to nip through it. A good habit to get into for stainless and a lot of other alloys: hold that torch still when you terminate the arc. Let the post flow finish. Let's take a quick look at another weld here, and one thing I want you to pay attention to is how quickly I get started moving. I try to get going in about 2 seconds. From the time I light up till the time I start adding rod, about 2 seconds. Stainless steel is not very thermally conductive, and that means heat builds up quickly. And so if you don't get started and get moving, heat can build up and you just can't outrun it. Things just overheat with you, and things start getting oxidized and gray. Things start warping. You penetrate where you don't want to penetrate. Nothing good happens. So, like I mentioned earlier, I didn't nip through this at all. But what happens when you do penetrate fully through stainless steel that's not purged with argon or doesn't have any backing on it? Well, that's what we're going to look at here. I kind of scorched this piece just so we could see what it looks like when you penetrate fully through with no argon or no backing on the back side. That's a place for bacteria to grow. It's a place for a crack to initiate. It's not good. Stainless steels typically require a little bit less amperage than carbon steels, and here's an example of that. All right, this is placed in a fixture like you would take an aerospace test in. This is a piece of carbon steel, just plain cold rolled. It's about 0.38 thousandths thick. And it took 45 amps. That's what the machine read out on the digital readout, was 45 amps, so a little bit more than 1 amp per 1/1000th of thickness here. 1 amp per thousandths is a fairly good place to start for carbon steel butt joints, but when you put something in a fixture with chill bars, that usually is going to make it require more amperage due to the heat sink. In a minute we'll take a look at a similar joint on stainless, but let's just watch this for a minute. Welding right up to that tack and then backing off the foot pedal and backing inward with the arc as I terminate. Same technique works on stainless. We'll take a look at stainless in just a second. Now, carbon steel does not usually require an argon back purge, but I had one going here anyway just to show the difference it makes. This would be all gray and flaky if it didn't have argon. Well, now let's take a look at a similar joint, a little bit thicker in stainless steel. This is 063 304L stainless. I'm just going to weld part of it here. Now remember, the carbon steel took more than 1 amp per thousandths of a thickness to get good penetration, good even penetration. This is 063, only required 51 amps, and that was plenty hot. Even with the chill block fixture, it required less than 1 amp per thousandths of an inch to get the job done here. Just an example of how stainless steel requires less amperage than carbon steel, typically. Just a minute ago we showed what it looked like when you welded stainless steel and fully penetrated it with no argon, no back purge, and that's what it looks like with a good back purge. Compare that to this. Big difference. Coming up next, we're going to talk about sanitary tubing for food service, and it's all about the inside and all about the purge. So I cut a small vent hole, poked a small vent hole in the very top, upmost area so that I can displace oxygen, and I made an X cut so that gas can escape when it's all sealed up. I'm just using a really old 26 style 200 CK torch here, but I did put a number 8 stubby gas lens on it, and I'm using a scratch start, really crude setup. Doesn't really matter. That's how a lot of this stuff is done in the field. So a lot of people walk the cup. In this particular video, I just decided to freehand it, making tiny little circles. Watching that little eye swim around tells me I'm getting good penetration. Just trying to move out at a even, steady pace. Keep kind of a tight arc. Keep it going nice and good. And then again, it's all about the inside. You want a nice silver bead on there. They won't trap bacteria. You might have noticed I wasn't using any filler metal, and so a lot of joints in stainless steel, especially in the food processing industry, are done without filler metal. It's more about the aesthetics and not leaving crevices for bacteria to grow, passing food inspections and all that kind of thing, than it is about structural strength. A good practice is making your tack welds much smaller than your final weld will be, and so I'm making quick burst flash tacks here. I'll just rock in and give it a quick blast, and it makes a nice neat tack with very little heat input. The tacks pretty much stay silver, very easy to weld over. There's a word that tripped me up in school, and that was autogenous. All that means is fuse welding, or welding without filler metal. And a lot of kitchen work, kitchen equipment work on stainless sheet metal is done without filler metal. Again, another word for it is welding autogenously. And it really helps to have good gas shielding, a really good sharp electrode, and a really tight arc. I'll go ahead and add filler metal on this one, and that brings me to this point. A stainless joint like this often welds better with one size smaller filler metal than you would normally use on something like carbon steel. So I would probably use a 030 or 045 on 16 gauge. I believe I'm using 045 here. For kitchen equipment and food service stuff, another common joint is an outside corner joint. And here we're going to do one with some purge gas on it and one without. Just again to drive the point home on what a difference it makes having some argon shielding on the backside, or at least some backing, as opposed to nothing. Okay, that one had argon on the back side of it, as well as some chill. I pulled the chill loose and no argon at all, just air on the back side of this one. And as soon as I wrap this half up, we'll flip it over and we'll take a look at the difference between purge versus no purge. No big surprise there. Again, that's a place for bacteria to grow, a place for a crack to start. On stainless steel, some aluminum backing would have at least prevented that sugaring, but up here where there was argon, it looks way better. Could even look better than that if I'd have adjusted the argon flow a little bit better. If you're TIG welding stainless steel and you need purge gas, an easy way to do it is a dual flow meter. You can use 2 separate cylinders if you want to, but the benefit of a dual flow meter is just easier, and sometimes you might want to run 2 machines off of 1 tank of gas. All right, let's take a look at a simple hole fill technique on stainless steel. This is really common in the aerospace industry, but any sheet metal fabrication involves filling in a misdrilled hole every now and then. So on stainless steel, if you try to fill in a hole like this, You can see right away, you can see those crispy critters coming on the back side there. It's all granulated and getting sugared and oxidized, and now all of a sudden it's getting squirrely. I'm having to stop and let it cool a minute. It's getting oxidized and it requires more heat and it's not flowing very well. And so I've got to hit the pedal, more amperage, and it's just not ideal. I mean, in a pinch, in an emergency, if you had to plug a hole, yeah, you could do it here, but we're going to look at the back side in a minute, and you're going to see once again, you're going to see all that sugaring and oxidation and just a scenario that you don't want. It's taking a lot of heat to get that thing to flow together. Take a quick look at the back side. We're not going to have any big surprises here. We've already seen a couple of examples of what it looks like, and yeah. If I would have just put some backing material behind that, not even argon shielding, just backing material like aluminum or copper, that would go a lot better. So that's what I'm going to do real quickly now. I'm just going to show you the difference. I'm going to use aluminum because it's a lot easier to get a hold of than a chunk of copper. Copper works even better just because it's more thermally conductive than aluminum, but aluminum will get you by in a pinch for backing material. It is important, though, to have it clamped directly to the back side with no real air gap. What that's going to do is it's going to trap the argon from the cup. Here I'm using a Jazzy 10 ceramic cup, which helps. But it's going to trap argon shielding from the cup, and give me a somewhat of a argon shielding on the back side just from the gas that it traps. And also it's going to pull a lot of heat out. So you're going to wind up seeing a smaller weld there because I just didn't have to use as much heat. So we flip that thing over, it's going to be a huge difference. Like night and day. The Jazzy 10 has become one of my favorite cups, and because of that secondary diffuser, you can use a really long stick out and get really good shielding. It comes in handy for all kinds of stainless jobs. Next up is a stainless 11 gauge project, and I just use a number 8 stubby gas lens on it along with chill bars to get a really good shiny bead. You don't always have to have a big cup to do it. If you can use chill bars, then the heat gets drawn out and you'll wind up with a shiny bead as well as less distortion. Chill bars are the jam on stainless steel whenever you can use them. Sometimes you got to go to great lengths to clamp them on there. You got to have long clamps and things like that, but it really helps a lot. So I'm doing a whole bunch of flash tacks on these outside corner joints. And then I'm going to come back and clamp some 1/4-inch wall aluminum angle for chill bars. And that's going to give me kind of an argon trough, and it's also going to pull a lot of heat out of this stainless and keep it from warping. And for the trouble it takes, just a few extra seconds of putting clamps on there, it's going to make a big difference. Once again, going back to the concept that stainless requires less amperage than carbon steel. This is 125 thousandths thick, but I'm going to weld it out at 100 amps, and that's going to be enough. I'll probably go full pedal here. I've made my tacks a little bit smaller than the final weld will be, so you shouldn't be able to see where the tacks are when I'm done. And I'm just motoring out at a fairly comfortable speed. I'm not out of control here, but I'm trying to move out. I'm not trying to hang out and creep along nice and slowly. Just because stainless takes less amperage to weld than carbon steel doesn't mean you want to weld it cold and slow. You want to use enough amperage to get moving quickly, get your puddle established, get moving, and get in there and get out. So even with a standard 8 gas lens, stubby gas lens cup, the chill bars made a huge difference. If you have a 17 style air-cooled torch and you're still using the standard cups that came with it, the very first upgrade I would recommend is this, the Weldmonger Stubby Gas Lens Kit. Let's take a quick look at welding carbon steel to stainless steel, and 309 filler is the way to do that. Here I'm going to put a cover pass on a 3-inch pipe to a stainless steel flange, and I'm using a number 8 gas lens, standard gas lens with a 20 water-cooled torch. 1/8 inch diameter 309 filler metal. And normally I would walk the cup on this, but sometimes I like to stay and practice freehanding. I just lay the filler metal in there and do kind of a Z-weave. trying to pause just barely on the edges, on the toes of the weld, to make sure it's filled in and make sure there's no undercut. I set the machine on lift arc function here, even though it has high freak start, just to kind of stay in practice on trailing out. All right, let's talk about some tips for keeping stainless steel stainless. Shield the back side. Now sometimes aluminum or copper backing is sufficient shielding. Other times, like for food grade sanitary tubing, a high purity argon purge is the way to go. Use a dedicated stainless steel wire brush. Dedicated means one that has only been used on stainless steel. A gas lens setup, not always needed, but never hurts. Use as large a cup size as is practical, along with chill bars whenever possible to pull that heat out. That helps with discoloration as well as distortion. Stainless is less thermally conductive than carbon steel. It heats up quickly, heat builds up quickly, and only 2/3 the amps are needed as compared to carbon steel in most cases. Using one size smaller filler wire than you would on carbon steel is helpful. And remember the 3 C's, clean, clean, clean. Sometimes an acetone wipe is enough, other times more cleaning is needed. Let me leave you with this shot here. This sort of demonstrates how useful a TIG finger can be. I'm propping right next to that weld, going along nice and slow. It's heating up like crazy, but my knuckles are not screaming like they would be if I was trying to prop without a TIG finger. It's my product. That's how I pay for these videos. 100% sourced and made in the USA by friends and family. Thanks for watching. See you next time.